Good morning, everyone. We're going to play in this scrapbook again. Working on my daily pages. Really trying hard not to say Anyways, I'm going to change the format today a little bit because I want to show you all the steps for one page. I don't work that way normally, but I want to show you, even if it's not on the same page, all the different steps. So first I have to show you something else though. Look at this cool thing I got for my paint. We were at the thrift shop at the pound sale, and the way my paints was not working, so I saw that and I thought this ought to work real well, so I'm hoping it will. Anyway, I'm going to take you through the steps to go hopefully from a blank piece of paper like this to a finished piece like this. I won't be working all on the same page because I don't like to use the heat gun to dry things. The reason I don't like to use the heat gun to dry things is acrylic paint is plastic. It can't be good for the paint. I don't like to listen to it. So I work where I can lay things out and come back to them the next day. You've been watching, if you followed these daily art journals at all, you know that that's the way I work. So I am going to grab out a piece of map. Hold on just 1 second. I'm really sorry about that. I forgot my papers for doing the underlayment of things. Usually, I don't start with a blank page like this. I've had paint on my palette, and I have paper to just scrape off the paint. And I will use up whatever is on my palette on different papers, like so. So that I'm not really starting with a blank piece of paper. Next, I will find either some book page, some security envelope, some magazine paper, or today I'm going to use some tissue paper. And this tissue paper is printed with color, so it will add both color and a layer of texture. I'll put that down with Mod Podge. And the Mod Podge I usually use is matte, although it seems to dry very shiny. And I also water it down with just this this is about 1.5 cups maybe, and I water it down with maybe a tablespoon of water. It just thins it out a little bit and makes me a little bit happier. Then I make decisions on nothing. I just pick and stick paper down. Now because this piece of paper wasn't dry, I ended up with paint on my piece of paper, but that's all right. Like I said, this is just going to give me another layer of texture and color. I do like tissue paper for a lot of things because it allows the colors that are behind it to come through. And sometimes it gets little wrinkles in it, and I happen to like those. And at this stage of the game, I'm not really worried about any type of composition or anything like that. I'm really just putting color and texture on the paper. And I'm no different than many other people who art journal or do this kind of work. I am sure there's lots of people out there that work this way. Most of the people I watch on videos of, though, seem to really use the heat gun, and I just don't. I don't like it. Now then, that's been added. Sometimes at this point I lay in some more paper, sometimes not. Likely as not, I will go on to paint some lines and circles and mark making. So what I'm going to do next is just that. And since I have this little bit of red in this, I'm going to make marks with red. Now, it is wet right now, so my marks may be a little more indistinct than some of my marks. Let me show you what I'm talking about. These marks are very distinct on this piece. The Mod Podge I've been using may make it where it's not so distinct. I'm not worried about it, but that's one reason why at different stages I go on to the next page. Now I'm going to use a credit card or hotel key, something like that, to make some lines. It looks like the Mod Podge is dry enough to be alright with it. It's a little bleedy right there, but that's okay. Now usually I'd wipe my card off on another sheet. I also think that at this stage of the game I want a little bit of black. And black, by the time I paint a few more layers on it, it will have sort of faded to the background, and then I'll probably put some more black on it before I'm done. And right now I'm going to use, this came out of the middle of a roll of Scotch tape. It's got 2 rings, so I end up with a double ring. Oops, and that one was really gloppy. It's partially because my tape ring thing has gotten paint on it and it's getting fat, which is all right. And it's partially because the paper's wet. Okay, now I really need to let this dry. So I'm going to go on to the next thing on a different page. If I don't let this dry, it'll be all over everywhere before I'm done. So I'm going to set this aside and let it get dry. Let's see. I'm just deciding with the paint that I got out what I might like to work on. I have red and black paint out, so I'm thinking about what I'm going to work on. So this page is sort of at the same stage. It's got some collage on it. It's got some paint on it. And it doesn't really have a focal point or anything like that. And at this stage, I want to put on it, I want to put paint to tone down the collage, to tone down some of the marks. I tend to use the same brush over and over again. I'll just squish out some of the water. And I'm going to use the red paint that I got out, but that's white I want. I'm going to thin it out with some matte medium, and the reason for that is it makes it just a little bit more translucent. I also want to get out some blue. But there we go. I haven't quite got all of my colors in my new paint thing yet. So I'm going to get out some blue. So I've just got some sort of basic red and blue. This one says cobalt, the other one said bright red. And like I said, I tend to use the same brush. Now if you know your color theory, blue and red makes purple. So hopefully we'll have purple, not mud. Not all paint is created equal when it comes to mixing colors. And this series in this book is I'm sort of working very abstract. And I've been very happy with what's been going on, so that's now if the paint gets too thick, it starts covering up too much, work into your matte medium, because the matte medium will thin out the paint. Okay. So that's where that one stands, and that is not exactly what I want. I think it needs a little more definition. Now I'm happy with it. However, it has to dry. There's just no two ways about it. It's got to dry. So I will set it aside and choose a different piece to work on. What I'm going to do is pick another piece that's sort of at this stage. I do, however, have to get the paint out of my brush. So, because it is filled with paint. And now we'll put in some water so I can wash it out. And I'm going to choose the next piece that was sort of at that stage. Okay. There we go. Right there. These two pieces are relatively at that point where they need something. I just am not sure what. Sometimes you have to think about where the next thing's going to go, what's going to be the direction of it. Ultimately, it will be on this order where you see the layers build up. So I think what it needs is a couple of little focal points, and I'm going to do that with some book page doodle. That I'm going to put some of this tissue on. And I don't like the little square edges, so we'll get rid of the little square edges. Here's where, oh dear. You don't want to go into your Mod Podge with a really dirty brush. So you want to make sure, and I think today what we'll do is get out a different brush. I don't usually Mod Podge and paint on the same day. So I'm going to put this down. Wow, it's warm in here today. Okay. You see that just added another little layer? And at this stage, I would come back in. I would normally let it dry, but I'm going to come back in with some paint. And I definitely want some of these little black circles, and I'm getting out a clean one of these little tape dispenser things because I do not want such drastic circles. I do need some more black paint though. And I also might need a little credit card line or two. Oh, I got into the red paint. Are we going to worry about that? No. Okay. So now I'm going to set this aside. This one is very close to being done. I'm not sure now if it needs something or not, but I will set it aside and let it dry and come back and look at it again later. Okay, this one is done. Okay, I've lost my book. There we go. In this book, there were some great stickers that they just had fabulous sayings on them. This one says, while we try to teach our children about life, our children teach us about what life is, by Angela Schwind. Anyways, I'm going to use that one. That is, if I can get it off. If you're not familiar, this book, this one down here says, life isn't a matter of milestones, but of moments. Let's see if I can get that one off. Okay. This book was from the thrift store. It was a sort of a scrapbook kind of thing. It was by no means new. Anyways, I am going to put this on this page, and then I'm going to do some pin work around it. Because I don't trust the glue, I have been using Mod Podge to put it down, and then I put Mod Podge over it. Oops. they are sticky label papers, so it's kind of slippery. The lid on the Mod Podge. My credit cards are all messy over here, but I will then take a credit card and just kind of make sure it's down. Very good. Very stuck. And normally I would let that dry before I go on, but I'm going to do the pin work now so that you can watch. And I use Sharpie paint pens. I use these white Uniballs. I did some really cool things the other day with black paint and the back end of my paintbrush. So I think I will start with that because that may have to dry and we may have to go on to something else. But by the back end of the paintbrush, I just mean that I'm making dots with it, like so. I'm just dipping it in paint and making dots. I liked those better than using the Sharpie. It just seemed like they were cleaner, nicer dots. My paintbrush is building up a nice round end on the bottom of it, of paint though, so it's making bigger dots every time I make them, which is fine. Now the dots, the pen work, whatever you want to call this, it's all about creating another layer of interest, another place for your eye to be drawn to, another place to grab your attention. It's also a matter of wanting to make your eye flow around the paper. And I don't want black ones clear up there in that corner. So I'm going to use my white Signo Uniball pigment ink pen. And I like these, oh, can you see? I like these Signo pens because they tend to write on everything. They definitely work nicely over acrylic paint. Now, one thing about it is when you start getting a wet piece of paper with wet ink or wet paint, you need to be careful where you're putting your hand down. And I was testing to see if the Mod Podge had dried, which it's fairly dry. You see how much attention that adds to the page? It's just something simple. My pen must have a little bit of something on the tip of it today. I'm sorry. I don't mean to get off center. It's just sometimes it is easier when it's right on the edge to pull it towards me. And I sometimes have to come back and look at something tomorrow or the next day to see if I want to do something different, add to it. Just a little bit. Change things up just a little bit. This book, I have decided, is going to just sort of stay in this stage at the end. In other words, this is a finished piece, finished page. They're sort of abstract. They don't have a big collage focal piece. But I'm real pleased with the way they're coming out. So this is how they're going to stay. Now, I'm very pleased with that. There's one more thing that I usually do, and that is these labels are very white. So I like to sort of grunge up around the edge a little bit, and probably a watercolor pencil or anything would work. This happens to be a Stabilo pencil. I like it because I like that I could take my finger and smudge it up, and then it's permanent when it dries. I'm having to be real careful, and I'm not probably going to be able to smudge this right now because I normally would have let that paint dry. So I'll smudge around the top edge of it. And okay, and I'll come back and smudge up the bottom edge when that paint dries, but I don't want to slime it all over everywhere. So that is sort of the process I go through from one page to the next, but I usually change and work on several pages at a time doing the different steps. and therefore one day I'll be putting down the first couple layers, and the next day I'll put down the next layers until I get to the point where I'm finishing things. I hope you enjoyed this. I am having fun with this series. I'd like to finish it because I have a bunch of other videos I want to make, but it is what it is, and I have so much time every day. So please go have fun, enjoy your afternoon, spend some time making art. I hope you get to play, and thanks for stopping by. Oh, if you like my videos, please do give them a thumbs up. It really does make a difference in who sees them. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks a bunch.